Let's talk about the Golden State Warriors, a team that has too many good players but maybe aren't good enough, and therefore there's confusion, and we will find out exactly what any of this means. Are they the most annoying team in the NBA at the moment? Yes. Michael Bolton, what do you think?
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I did not know that Chapel Rowan's name was said like she was related to Ian and Greg. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball. On Instagram on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So give it a thumb and a double bang and all that stuff. Yesterday, full show, immediately reacting to the Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo trade. Since then, we have found out two things, is that the Knicks did actually waive Marcus Morris. They also had to... Daquan Jeffries was included in the trade. He wasn't on the Knicks roster. So they're going to have to sign and trade him to an above minimum deal. Remember, there's no mid-class in the NBA anymore. It's all minimum salaries and maxes, as all these guys get overpaid to deal with the salary cap problems. But... that trade is still not finalized. There's going to be parts and pieces moving around to just fulfill some of the requirements, but the main part is there. The other thing that I have noticed with that is that if you are a fan of a certain team, Knicks fans, this mainly goes to you because you become one of the more passionate about it. Have a look at the way that you're approaching someone else when they have a take on your team that maybe doesn't line up with your rosy decision. Because it's very obvious usually when I do this stuff. As I said, hey, the Knicks are incredibly thin. That was one of my takes today on Twitter. That team has no depth. They've got their 5 starters, their 5 best players. And then the next best player is Juice McBride. You could say it's Mitch Robinson, but I don't know when he's going to play. It might be January. Or it could be later. He might not come back at all. The next guy is Precious Achiuwa. It is unquestioned to me that the Knicks have a very good starting 5 and non-existent depth. And that is fine because Tom Thibodeau plays his starters a lot. But the problem then comes is if you play your starters that much, and part of the reason the Knicks had issues in the playoffs was guys getting hurt, and then those guys get hurt, your reserves are terrible. You are going to be relying upon Landry Shamet and Cameron Payne. I had someone, and this is where I get to with this, is multiple Knicks fans were, how can you say that we're definitely deeper than we were last season? I go, bro, there is absolutely no way that is true. And someone said, yeah, look at our bench. Kolek, Daddier, Payne. And that is where I have to draw the line. Okay, that is a level of unbelievable delusion to suggest that no one is saying that the Knicks are bad or that your team is bad. It's just we have to have a look at this from a neutral perspective. And I beg everyone to do that. I beg. It's also like, from the Wolves side, people go, well, it's time for Naz Reid to break out. Anthony Edwards is going to be playing point guard now. DiVincenzo is going to have a bigger role than in New York. Okay, but have a look at where everything else fits. The Wolves lost 1 player and gained 2. How does that all fit together? There are lots of ways. It's at the 240 game, which we will play on this podcast at some point. The next bit of news is unfortunate and frustrating as Chris Middleton won't be ready to start training camp after his ankle surgeries. I was told by Bucks guys it was a routine procedure and he was fine. It's just a cleanup. Apparently not. Not in the top 100 again. I can't do it because this means if he's not ready for the training camp, they will be limiting his minutes for big portions of the season. He might not play 30 minutes for a period of time. He'll miss back-to-backs. I don't think he'll miss the start of the season, but I can't rule that out now. So, as much as I was liking getting him in hundreds, or inside the top 100, probably not anymore for Middleton. That brings us to talk about the Golden State Warriors, a team that someone said in one of my comments, I bet you're going to leave the Warriors till last to do on these previews because you just don't know what's going to happen, and it's true, I don't. I don't know what the rotation's going to look like. They are one of the more confusing teams that are out there. And that leads to questions about how we value these guys. So here is my best guess that in 20 minutes' time, I could look at this and go, well, that's completely wrong, Josh. You absolute giant dickbag. That is a terrible guess at a starting lineup. You are wrong. I could say that in 20 minutes. But this is what I think they'll go in with. Steph, obviously. Brandin Podziemski, Andy Wiggins, John Kuminga, and Draymond Green at center. Now, there are two obvious situations here which could very much not be true. Draymond might not start at center, and I have gone back and forth on this. That could easily be Trayce Jackson-Davis, meaning Draymond plays the 4, and then that means one of Kuminga and Wiggins would come off the bench. Steve Kerr had comments, I think, 2-3 days ago, talking about how Wiggins was in for a larger role and he was going to have to do more usage-wise. So I'm not sure that's going to happen. The other thing that could happen, what if they played Wiggins at the 2, which would seem crazy considering they brought in 2 other shooting guards in the free agency period, and they've got Brandin Podziemski. Now, maybe Podziemski doesn't start and it's Buddy Hield. Maybe it's De'Anthony Melton. So we talk about the Knicks and their lack of depth. This team has depth because that is the Warriors' starting 5, and it doesn't include Hield, it doesn't include Melton, and it doesn't include Jackson-Davis. Again, you want to compare and contrast that to the Knicks, is that those 3 players, Hield, Melton, and Jackson-Davis, you could argue that they would be in consideration. Now, it depends how you want to view Josh Hart as a player, who's pretty good, but those guys aren't that far off what Josh Hart brings, and they're the 6th, 7th, and 8th guys in the Warriors lineup potentially here. That is what I mean by depth. And the Warriors have 8 guys that you could consider as starters, and there is literally only 5 spots. So it means either 3 of those guys lose out completely, or everyone gets limited minutes, which in the past Steve Kerr has done. And we're going to go through everyone's minutes and numbers from last season, and you will see how low some of those minutes totals are for some of the players. Let's talk about some guys who are undervalued, and usually the Warriors being the big market team, the modern day Lakers, so to speak, that gets fluffed ad nauseum on sites like ESPN and talking head scream fests, the Warriors would get overrated. I don't think that's the case. But a lot of that is because of the uncertainty about how this rotation is going to go. But I've found 4 guys that I think are maybe going a little bit too low. And number one of these, and I don't like this, but number one I think is Draymond Green. Now, you can say that there is a risk of Draymond at his advanced age getting hurt, and I agree with that. There's a chance that he gets suspended. Of course, there is a chance he gets a permanent kicked out of the league suspension/retirement because he can't control himself or whatever. We know all the stuff that happened last season. That is all actually possible. But I just think in a category league, when we are talking head-to-head stuff and we're considering punts and punting points and all that sort of stuff, Draymond with an ADP of 104, a rank of 102 on Yahoo, an ADP of 123 on ESPN, an ADP of 102 on Fantrax, and even his 90 rank on ESPN, these numbers are too low. I mean, he just is better than this. On a per-game basis, -1 stuff, he should be in the 70s or 60s. You do not have to draft him there, and I would not suggest drafting him there. And I know he only scored 8.5 points, and you've got to be able to deal with that. He hit a 3, he had 7 rebounds and 6 assists with a steal and with a block and shot 50 and 73. It's hard to look at him and go, well, he scored 9 points. How could I love that inside the top 100? But you can, in the right setting. Now, Draymond, again, played 27 minutes a night last season with 15 usage. Does that go up in his age 35 season? Maybe. By the way, when I put those ages up on these player profiles, someone's going to say, oh, he's only 34, or whatever it is, right? I round them up. So if someone is 32 and 7 months, I put them as 33. If they're 32 and 4 months, I put them as 32. It's a simple 0.5 round up, round down. That's how the ages work on these things. So that's when I'm putting those numbers out there, that is how I'm doing that. Because someone has commented, oh, he's not this age, he's not 33, he's actually 32. Well, if he's 32.7, then I say it's 33. That's how I'm doing that. Because again, by the end of the season, that they will tick over onto that next full number and have their birthday. Everyone has their own way of doing it. Like Basketball Reference has a certain date that they cut off for ages, and Dunks and Threes, I think, does January 15th as an age. I just look at it this way. If you're over 32 and 6 months, then you're 33. And if you're under 32 and 6 months, you're 32. That's how I do it. Just for clarification, because someone did ask, and sometimes I see those things and then it pops into my mind. The other guy, or actually back to Draymond, because even in points leagues, I think there is like a little bit of value maybe on ESPN. Like he's ranked 125th, remember, an ESPN default league, and actually now a Yahoo public free league is 10 teams, which is so stupid. But anyway, a rank of 125 suggests that's a last round pick. And while Draymond has never been as good in points leagues as he's in category leagues, that is just too low. So I don't love Draymond's points league rank for Yahoo, but I do for ESPN. One of the other ones that stands out to me is the bucket himself, Johnson Kuminga. Kuminga has an ADP on ESPN at 118 with a category rank of, hold on to whatever you can find, a rank on categories for Kuminga on ESPN. I know it's ESPN, but 171. Are you blind? I don't love Kuminga as a player. There are certain things that I think he lacks. Sometimes it's vision. Sometimes it's why is your athletic skills not translating into anything good defensively. Sometimes it's shooting. But 171 is blatantly absurd. His points league numbers, I also think, are out of control. His ADP on Yahoo is 98 with a rank of 105, and for points leagues, he should be much better than that. On ESPN, his ADP is 118, and his rank is 120, and that is, again, a blatantly crazy and absurd number. As for Kuminga last season, we know that he didn't do much to start the year, and in the end of the year, he was only playing a bit under 30 minutes, but he played only 26 for the season with 24 usage. He is 22 years old. He averaged 16 and 5, 2 assists, and like I said, bad steals, bad blocks. But 53 and 75 is fine. 0.73s is low. But somebody has to take on the usage of Klay Thompson. Klay was the number 2 usage guy on this team. And I see no one else who really is realistically going to step into more usage than him. Now, other guys will get more. There'll be a little bit more for Podziemski. There'll be more for Wiggins, probably. Some of the guys coming in will do some stuff. But in terms of being who is the consistent number 2 option, I think it has to be Kuminga. And that is why, like, at those ranks and ADPs, I'm way more interested in him than those numbers would suggest. We've got more undervalued guys to go, but we're going to go and tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season, NFL fans, with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you're watching, you're sitting there, you go, maybe this is going to happen, where you can open the FanDuel app where you would place your bets, and you can see, you can see the live game stats. They're there right in front of you, right on that page, and live play-by-play. It's all there. So you can see all that information that you need, work on your hunch, and place your bets all on that same screen. And if you are signing up to be a new customer over at FanDuel, if you place a $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You don't even have to win that bet. You just get the bonus bets guaranteed. So go to FanDuel.com right now. Check out NFL games this weekend. Check out NBA futures. Check out college football. It is all there. And also, do not forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, so like I said, we've got numerous undervalued players still on this Warriors squad, and one of the ones that I'm going to go through here is someone that is going to go under the lens, and that is Brandin Podziemski. Yahoo's got him ranked at 135. ESPN's ADP has him at 135 with a category rank of 164. Yahoo's points league has him at 124 ADP, and obviously still rank of 135. And ESPN's points league's got him outside of draftable range, 135 with a rank of 134. That's just crazy to me. Yeah, there's competition between Buddy Hield and Melton and Podziemski, but you hear about the way the Warriors talk about this guy. We heard the quote about getting 8 to 10 threes up, which again, I don't think that he will get 8 to 10 threes up, but what it suggests to me is that if that is bandied about as a term, that means he is playing 30 plus minutes. That is the important part of that. Now, maybe he doesn't, but he's 22. He's a 6'4" guard who, in the Josh Hart realm of players, it's nothing I copped criticism for yesterday when I said the Knicks don't have any good rebounds. They go, what about Josh Hart? He's a good rebounder. He is. That is true. He's a very good rebounder for his size. That doesn't mean that they have a bunch of good rebounders, because they don't. They just don't. That's on Towns' rebounding numbers jumping up, regardless. Podziemski's a good rebounder. He played 27 minutes of rookie with 15 usage. That could go to 18 usage. It could go to 31 minutes, and then we're rolling. He averaged 9 and 6 with almost 4 assists. He shot 1.2 threes. The percentages are rough, but we expect that from young players. And we expect jumps in percentages from year 1 to year 2. And Podziemski was a better free throw guy in college, so that could become 73 easily. I don't expect it, but we know free throws vary a lot. And he's got a record of being a better free throw shooter than this. He's probably going to get up more threes, whether it's 8 to 10. I debate that that's the number, but it's going to improve. And there's going to be more stuff coming from him. But we'll talk about him more under the lens. The last guy who I think is a little bit undervalued at the moment is Andy Wiggins. And every mock draft I do, Wiggins lasts until the final pick. And I'm sitting there in the last round going, okay, I don't love Wiggins' game overall. And I understand that we go, Had some struggles last season, and it really, especially to begin the year, was quite bad. That's pretty much undebatable. Right? He was just bad to begin last season. But he's ranked 173 on Yahoo. That again suggests that in a 14-team league, you'd leave him on the wire. Blatantly crazy. ESPN's got him at 176. Again, they're saying, no, only for 16-teamers. What are we doing? His ADP on Yahoo Wiggins is 142, and in points leagues, that's amazing value. And he's ranked on ESPN points leagues at 170. This is a guy that you are getting in the final round of drafts. You may not love Kuminga. You may not love Andrew Wiggins as a player. Plenty of off-court issues. His father passed away a month or so ago. He's 30, so he's tipping there, and he only played 27 minutes a night last season. But he still averaged 13 and 4.5, 0.6 steals, 0.6 blocks, 45 and 71. And somebody needs to take more shots with Clay not there. Wiggins can become the number 2 option instead of Kuminga. That is possible. He could be traded as well. That could happen also. But leaving him sitting on the wire while taking flyers on Reed Shepherds, I think is crazy. And I love a flyer. But this is an established player who also does have upside at that spot. Maybe I'm just off on this and they're going to say, Wiggins, you are a 24-minute-a-night bench player. Seems insane. But maybe they do that. Also, Wiggins was dreadful, but his second half of the season was much better. It did improve. And he was sort of on and off the bench. And maybe he is a bench guy this season. But I actually just think that the way that he is positioned and ranked at the moment, sitting as an undraftable 12-team league guy, makes me feel like I've lost my mind. Is there anyone on the other side of the equation, though? Is there anyone who is an overrated player, an overvalued player? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there is. And I don't like to say that Steph Curry is overrated. And I don't usually do it, because I really like Steph. There is a world, this one that we currently live in, that Steph is too high in certain spots. Now, I'm not going to tell you that Steph with a ranking and ADP of 12 for category leagues is definitely overvalued. There's a chance that it is, because the risk at his age, and we did see some pretty decent enough declines in Steph last season, there's a risk of that. Right, that is possible. But with Clay leaving, he's going to have to do a lot. There's not many shot creators on this team, or guys that are just going to take a lot of shots. His minutes might have to push up, but that also could mean he's more at risk of getting hurt. He's got Olympic fatigue / just playing those extra games, which hurts. He's going to be 37. He had 33 minutes and 31 usage last season, Steph. He averaged 26, 4.5, and 5. Yeah, the steal numbers have disappeared as he's gotten older. He's still great at free throws, but his three-point shooting did fall a little bit. He's still excellent. I'm not here to tell you, I thought you said Steph wasn't a good three-point shooter. Not saying that. He's unbelievable. He hit 4.8 threes a game. That is ridiculous, but it dropped a little bit. And while I do think that Steph is going to see a usage bump this season, in a points league, taking him at 12 is crazy. He has never been a strong points league. He's been very good. He's never been the number 1 points league type player. And I don't think he's getting back to that. Add in age risk, injury risk, other players being better than him. Him at 12 in a points league is, I think it's just a bad idea. But in the end, that doesn't matter. That pales into insignificance. It seems ludicrous that I would even care that Steph has an ADP of 12. It seems ludicrous that I would care that he's ranked at 12 on Yahoo, and then if you're grabbing him in a points league, that you might make a slight mistake because he might be the 20th best guy in a points league. Because the most insane thing that I have seen almost throughout the entire pre-draft process for fantasy is Buddy Hield's positioning on ESPN. For his ADP is 93. For a start, why? What are you doing? That is way too high for categories and for points. And then ESPN went this week and they updated their rankings. And on category leagues, he is ranked at 65th, Buddy Hield. On points leagues, he is ranked 78th. And I cannot, for the life of me, understand why that would be. Hield was benched by Indiana last season. He was traded to Philadelphia. And he was not only benched in Philadelphia, but taken out of the rotation. He did have one strong game, I think, in their last game of the playoffs before they were eliminated. He is 32 years of age. He offers very little apart from points and threes. And to get enough points and threes to matter, he really needs to play big minutes with strong usage. And he was a 26-minute, 19 usage player last season. He averaged 12 points with 2.6 threes. He is a very good volume shooter. He shoots very well from three. He also was benched by two organizations last season, two playoff organizations, and one of them took him out of the rotation at periods of time. And now he joins the team, and maybe he is the Klay Thompson replacement. But Podziemski and Melton are there as well. So how is Hield getting 30-plus minutes? If Hield got 33 minutes, I would say in the 80s, I get it. It's a one-dimensional type of game, I get it. But there's not even remotely close to a guarantee of that happening. His defense sucks. He's 32 years of age. And how could you have any level of confidence in those numbers? This might be the most egregious, outside of DeAndre Ayton at 150. I'm sure there's another one out there. This might be the most egregious placement of anyone on ranks and ADP that I have seen. Well, maybe Jalen Green in the 30s or Fred VanVleet in the 90s. There's a few this season. This makes a lot of the time I can justify it. I can see where you're coming from, even if I disagree. I don't get where anyone could be coming from to have Buddy Hield at that spot, and I would highly, highly recommend that you do not pick him there. That seems crazy to me. But, we're all wrong at sometimes, and maybe this is one where I'm wrong, and Buddy Hield plays 35 minutes and he's a top 70 player. Seems unlikely. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch those winnings roll in. You've got one more day left to activate their Caleb Williams special, because with one Caleb Williams passing yard, you get one win on PrizePicks in September. That is a free W if you get that. And PrizePicks also puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get that money back into your account as quickly a time as 15 minutes. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. The code is LOCKEDONNBA on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's take a look at if there are any potential breakout players on this team, and spoiler alert, there are. We've covered, I think, maybe both of them already. That's possible. There's 3 guys I've got here, and one of them is Brandin Podziemski, who we're going to do a little bit more on in a sec. One of them is John Kuminga. But the other one that I think has a chance to be a breakout guy is Trayce Jackson-Davis. Trayce was a late second-round pick last season. He was able to move into the lineup and replace Kevon Looney as the starting center for periods of time last season. And there's a chance that he's the starting center again this season. We'll get to that in a sec. He's going to be 25. He's a 6'9" center. He played 17 minutes a night last season, averaged 8 and 5 with 1.1 blocks and 70% shooting with bad free throws. So what you get with Trayce is good field goals. You're going to get pretty good block numbers. You'll get solid rebounds. You'll get okay scoring. It's almost a prototypical center type of guy. He did all of that and had moments of being a 12-team league guy last season in limited minutes. Maybe he does start, like I detailed at the start of the show. And he's just this good that they can roll with him and Draymond and Kuminga as the 3, 4, and 5, and Wiggins comes off the bench. This is where the confusion all comes in. I don't think there's any way that Trayce is playing 29 minutes a night. That would require some definite trimming of the roster. But there's a chance he just becomes that good that they can rely upon him. They get Draymond out of that position where he's not as good anymore at that small ball center. And he has a real chance that in 25 minutes a night, Trayce is a top 100 fantasy guy. Mainly for categories, but there is points league value in him as well. You understand there's bad free throws. I like him as a late round flyer, but he's also in that position that if Draymond doesn't play much center, that he is going to be the guy, because their centers are him and Kevon Looney, and that is it. There is no other centers really to talk about on this team whatsoever. Meaning that we've got a pretty good run of being able to get opportunities to do stuff. So what are the rotation risks? There's a lot. This is the most risky rotation in the NBA, I would say, when we're trying to figure out who's going to do what. The risk is like, how much small ball do they do? I said that Draymond might be the starter, but he might not. But if he plays 20 minutes at center, that limits what Jackson-Davis can do, and then it changes the calculus for guards and forwards. What if De'Anthony Melton and Buddy Hield push Brandin Podziemski, and Podziemski plays 25 and Hield plays 26 and Melton plays 25? Possible. What if Wiggins is actually cooked and he just doesn't play and Kuminga is the starting 3, and that means TJD is the starting center? What if Kevon Looney's actually back in shape? Because he was dreadful. He looked like he was out of the NBA last season, and they guaranteed his contract, and he's still there, and there's, workout shots of skinny Looney. And what if he is back to being good and he plays minutes? Meaning, where does Trace fit? And then Draymond gets no center minutes, and then the cascade down to Kuminga and down to these guys could all happen. There's just so many risks with this squad, and maybe that's why there are a lot of guys at the moment on this squad that do appear to be, perhaps undervalued. Let's put Brandin Podziemski under the lens now. And let's just dig into a few details, because obviously his name was brought up a lot in the offseason as the guy that they wouldn't include in Lauri Markkanen deals, and obviously that deal didn't happen. That is finished. It's not going on anymore. But Podziemski had a guy that I thought fell in the draft a little bit and struggled early on to get minutes in the rotation, but eventually just replaced Klay Thompson. Think about that. He replaced Klay Thompson in the starting lineup. Now, he sort of fell off a little bit towards the end of the season, and his shooting numbers, you can see on this graph, they're horrible. True shooting quality, free throw rate, all really low. 3-point attempt rate, this is where the 8 to 10 becomes insane, because I think there was 16 guys who attempted 8 to 10, and this guy was in like the bottom half of the league in 3-point attempt rate last season, about 35% or something. That's going to be tough. But very good passer, good defender, strong rebounder. Load and creation weren't very high last season. I think that can actually up itself as well. Last season, he did most of his work as a spot-up guy, which is interesting. But again, I do think there's a little bit more scope for that play-type graph to change, and the ball-handling role maybe improve somewhat. Maybe. But overall, a really good start to his career. Maybe some of the Warriors' exuberance in how good he is misplaced, or maybe it's PR stuff. I don't know. But it's out there. If we take a look at a few things here, this is the top right here is the Darko free throw, a field goal, 3-point attempt rate progression. And you can see, he's not at a high rate, but the way that it's been progressing, it was trending up towards the end of the season. Still only at 40% attempt rate. To get those 8 to 10, he needs to be 65. Not really going to happen. Down the bottom is his shot chart, and you'll see that he just took most of his shots at the rim, really wasn't that successful, or didn't take that many outside the arc. And then on the left-hand side, on the y-axis, we've got the percentage of time on ball, and the x-axis is how good you are at creating your own shot from three. Because it's all well and good for Podziemski to be a spot-up guy, but he's not going to be given 10 3-point attempts per game as a spot-up guy. I want to see if he's got an ability to create his own shot. So I've got De'Anthony Melton in there, a player that is a similar sort of type of guy, a shooting guard, point guard who handles the ball, who can shoot the three and can defend, which is sort of what Podziemski is, and they're on the same team. I've got Drew Holiday on there, who's someone whose numbers, and same as Max Strus, whose fantasy profiles ended up being similar. So I put them both there. Now, Drew Holiday and De'Anthony Melton, very much clear Podziemski in terms of being able to create their own shot from what we saw last season. Drew's up at 90th percentile, Melton's at 85th, while Podziemski's about 65th percentile. Max Strus, one of the other guys that compared favorably to Podziemski, is well down the bottom in the 50th percentile. So Podziemski's not bad at creating his own three-point shot, but he's got a little bit of a way to go, and the fact that Melton is there and now on the same team, we'll see how that gets distributed between those two players. What is also intriguing to me is that both Podziemski and Melton played on ball the same percentage, or around the same mark, and that wasn't far off Drew Holiday, who's been considered a point guard for most of his career. So that is intriguing to me, that a guy that was ostensibly a point guard shooting guard in Podziemski was playing so much on ball. But again, remember, De'Anthony Melton was doing that the same sort of amount, and now they are on the same team. And Klay Thompson was not a big on-ball guy. So while I do have faith in Podziemski playing more minutes and doing a little bit more, that Melton situation where Melton is doing similar stuff on ball but being better at creating his own shot, I'm not really sure where that leaves Podziemski in that sort of an area. Still really like him though. Still think there is value in him. If you look at the fantasy stat set similarities here, the most similar shape to a game is Strus, then it's Drew, then it's Karis LeVert, then it's Denny Avdia. These are all guys who get some assists and nice steals and decent rebounders as guards. Their free throw percentage, not so much Drew, but the other guys can be iffy. Strus has been up and down through his career. LeVert and Avdia have been bad at free throws. And they're solid rebounding guys. And you can see Podziemski's the thick blue line there and all that shape. He's better than others in some of that area. But that's sort of who he is. I don't think that there is super, super, super high upside this season for what Podziemski can bring, but there are some things to look at that are good in terms of minutes increase and role increase, but also some worries of maybe we just got to be cautious about not going too overboard in getting overly excited in pods at this stage. Who are the injury concerns on this team, or what injuries do we need to think about and worry about? And realistically, okay, I can say that Steph is an injury concern, and so is Draymond at their age, and that's fair enough. Maybe I should have put them on here, but the one that we really actually have a current concern with is De'Anthony Melton, because he had a back injury that basically ruined his season last season in Philadelphia, and we expect that he is okay at the moment, but who knows? I don't know if he's going to be okay or not. He's 26. He played 27 minutes a night with 18 usage, and we know he's been a fantasy legend over the period of time that he's been in the NBA, and we've always wanted a larger role. I'm not sure that he gets a larger than 27-minute-a-night role this season. He had 11 and 4 with 3 assists and 2 threes. He shot only 39% from the field, but 84% from the line. But again, how does he get 30 minutes when there's Podziemski and there's Hield and there's trying to fit Wiggins and Kuminga into all of this? I don't think that Melton is 100% a draftable 12-team league player this season. Adding in that risk of the back injury makes me a little worried, plus those other players in that similar position. I like him. And of course, if someone like Steph goes down, he's going to have to do a lot because their point guard depth isn't there. It's him and Podziemski, who sort of aren't really point guards, who are probably going to have to be the point guard on this team. Or Draymond just ends up being the point guard, which is also a possibility. In terms of looking at the Warriors and their schedule for the upcoming year, it's not bad. It's pretty mid, actually. 51 quality game. By mid, I mean actual median, not bad. 51 quality games, that's in the middle of the pack. 14 back-to-backs, that's in the middle of the pack. 14 maximum game weeks, middle of the pack. And their playoffs, if you end March 23rd, it's 4-3-4. If you go March 30th, 3-4-3. Yahoo default is 4-3-4. And ESPN default is 4-3-4-4. All really sort of straightforward-ish type of numbers. All pretty straightforward stuff. Oh, I pushed that schedule analysis button already. Don't need to hit that again. What I do need to hit is the fact that we are talking about young guys. We are talking about the youth invasion. We're talking about the guys who are under the age of 23 now on this squad. And there are a few of them. Kuminga, Podziemski, Moody, and Guy Santos. Now, Kuminga, my Bazemore metric has him as a top 50 dynasty rebuilding guy. Largely, I think that's because of the big usage that he's been getting. He's still incredibly young. Maybe there's room for some other stuff to grow, more importantly, assist rate and efficiency. But it does really like him for this season. And it also really likes Podziemski, who's got him as a top 75 dynasty asset. Now, I don't think he's hitting that this season, Podziemski, but I do think he's got that well-rounded fantasy game and ability. Like, Steph is old, man. Like, he's going to age out at some point soon, and someone like Podziemski and Kuminga, if they hold on, they could be the two guys that the Warriors look to build around, I guess. Moses Moody, a player that I've liked for a long time, who has never got the opportunity, and each year into someone's career that the opportunity never arises or they never grab it, you start to lose some faith that they're ever going to find that. So I've got Moody as a top 200 dynasty guy. I hope, look, I don't even know that he's going to be in the, I mentioned all this stuff, right? Sorry, that was an incomplete sentence. I don't know that he's going to be in the rotation. So I mentioned Curry, I mentioned Melton, I mentioned Hield, I mentioned Podziemski as their guards getting all the minutes. Where does Moody play? And that's not even to talk about Gary Payton, because this is, part of what I mean about this team is good. They have got lots of good players without guys that necessarily all fit together. How do the minutes all appear? I think Moody could have been a solid enough top 100, top 120 fantasy guy as a starter at some point, but we've never seen it. 18 minutes a night, didn't play every night, 8 points, 1 3, 46 and 79. He defends pretty well. He's shown flashes of passing. It's just never been there. And at this stage, while I've got him as a top 200 guy, I'm just not going to have faith that he's ever going to do enough to push into that original projection that I thought that he could get to. I think that's just the reality of where we are in his career, and maybe that's wrong to think of someone, because they were buried on a team that means they can't do it. But usually, 3 years in, he should have forced his way to do more, but he didn't. The other guy on this list I've got is barely a top 300 guy is Guy Santos. I liked actually Lester Quinones a little bit more than Santos, but Quinones is now in Philadelphia. Santos has shown a couple of things at times, but look, he barely played 8 minutes a night. He averaged 4 points on 51 and 94%. I don't believe those percentages at all. He was barely out there. He is still on this roster, but he's just not going to play that much. Maybe there's a chance for him somewhere, but he's already 22. So I'm not going to hold my breath and wait for something awesome to be happening there with old mate Guy Santos. Let's take a look at the risk-reward player. Again, using variance, who are the guys with ups and downs in their outcome options. And the one who really appeared as the most variable guy is De'Anthony Melton, who had a category variance of 100 spots and a points league variance of 5.3 points. And largely that's because of his over-reliance on steals and the fact that his free throws were as high as they were, and that can change really at any point. And you throw in the back injury, you throw in the minutes uncertainty. He's really tough. Look, late rounds, we don't care that much. But going higher than pick 120 on Melton, it just doesn't add up to me and make a lot of sense. The last thing we look at are the players who you might consider over the hill. The guys who I am considering that are very clearly into that decline phase of their career. They are over the age of 29, which is when decline starts, and there's a lot of them. We've got Steph, we've got Draymond, we've got Wiggins, we've got ancient Buddy Hield, who have talked about all these guys already. And then there is another guy that they brought in who I haven't mentioned his name yet either, Kyle Anderson. And we can talk about John Kuminga and we talk about Andy Wiggins and the roles that they could have as forwards. But this guy's going to play, I'm guessing, Kyle Anderson, another player who's a good player, but he's not a usage guy. He does struggle with his shot. He's 31. He only played 23 minutes a night last season as Naz Reid took some of his minutes. Even when Towns was injured, he averaged 6 and 3. He had a terrible shooting season. In the past, he's had better three-point seasons, but he was absolutely putrid in that ever since he donned the goggles and played for Team China. He lost his ability to hit anything. And now I don't know where he fits. Like maybe a 20-minute a night player on this Warriors squad, Kyle Anderson. He's signed here. He's 31. Like he's good. There's value in him. And another one of those guys that maybe if Steph goes down, the ball handling just goes to everyone who's not a point guard, like him and Draymond and Pods and Melton. Because that's pretty much what they have to do. And that's where we sit with those older guys. So there is a lot of upside guys. There's some undervalued players, I think. But there is also a bunch of older players where injuries and form decline can really start to crack in at any point. So if we're just going to go through and have a look. Is there anyone else I didn't talk about significantly on this team? Let me just go double check their roster to see if there's anyone that I really didn't dig into. Unless you want to hear about Hall Pass legend Lindy Waters, I think we're pretty good at going through all the players on this team. Although Lindy Waters is not a bad player, and he's on this squad too. He's just never going to get minutes. But if we talk about drafting these guys, like if you want to take Steph in the first round of a category league, I get it. Like I project him to be better than last season, but there is risk given age and injury there. But the 12th, 13th, 14th pick, I get it. Points league, no. Draymond, I think you can get really good value on him. He's a guy that maybe should be in the 70s or 80s, but he's going outside the top 100. I like that. Kuminga's getting underrated, I think, especially in points, but definitely in categories too. To me, a clear top 100 type of a guy. Podziemski, I also think is a chance at the top 100. Not sure I would take him there, but he's a chance at doing that. De'Anthony Melton, there's just the risk with how the minutes go. Andrew Wiggins, I love getting late, same as Trace Jackson-Davis, and I'm just not interested in Kyle Anderson. I'm definitely not taking Buddy Hield where ESPN thinks he's going to go. And even in the last round of the draft, I don't even think there's much upside there in old mate Budrick. But if you've got upside, you can hit the thumb on this video and you can subscribe and you can let me know everything about it. I don't know that we'll be doing another show today, but I said that yesterday. Then we had a trade drop off, but then next week we'll wrap up the team preview stuff. We'll do 16 team mock drafts, 14 team mock drafts, another auction one, more points ones. We've got analysts on to discuss. We'll do late round flyers with a lot of stuff that is coming, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.